This is advanced computer architecture. This might be the, I think, 4th class or so in the syllabus, as far as the syllabus is concerned. And we were discussing the multiprocessors and multi-computers. Okay, so in the or you can consider it as the categories of the parallel computers. Parallel computers can be divided into 2 categories. One is the multiprocessor, the second is the multi-computers. The multiprocessors are basically the shared common memories. Okay, shared memory wherever you have, then that is the multiprocessor. Whereas in the case of multi-computers, it is the unshared distributed memories. Okay, unshared distributed memories. So till now we considered the shared memories, which are multiprocessors, and in the multiprocessors we consider the 3 different categories: UMA, NUMA, and COMA. So as the name clearly suggests, uniform and non-uniform, and we additionally have the cache only. In between we had what is known as the hierarchical model also. So the UMA model is tightly coupled, whereas the what you call NUMA model might not be the tightly coupled. It generally is a little loosely coupled type of structure. Okay, so then we have the hierarchical model, where we have seen we have the GIN and the SIN. GIN and the SIN we have, and wherein each one of the what you call SIN network might be connected in the form of either NUMA or the UMA type of model. Then we considered the cache-only memory architecture, where you have the directory and the cache and the processor. All these are, rather what you call to the processor. The cache is connected. The cache can have a lookup through the directory structure, and because of the directory, what you call the directory structure just points to the contents of the cache over here. So other, so to say, nodes can use that directory structure to access the contents of the cache. Okay, so that is what we considered in the what you call COMA type of network, which is cache only model. So next we come to what is known as the multi-computers. Before going to the multi-computers, we need to consider some of the examples related with that. The shared memory models. So there is the shared memory model representative micro multiprocessor systems. So you have the sequent symmetry S81, so to say, mini supercomputer, which is having a hardware architecture which is bus connected with 30 I386 processors, and you have the what you call the interprocessor communication via the SLIC bus and weighted floating point accelerator. Then software applications, there are the OS is the Dynix, CAPSequent preprocessor transaction processing, and it's basically you can use in place of the i86. The i486 based multiprocessor is available from 1991, and then i586 based systems were slowly appearing there. Then we have the IBM ES9000, which is model 900/VF, has a ES9000 processor with vector facilities, crossbar connected to IO channels and shared memory. OS support is the MVS and VMKMS, and you have the fiber optic channels integrated cryptographic architecture. The next one is the BBNTC 2000 MPP class of multiprocessors with 512 M88100 processors with local memory connected by a butterfly switch, which is under the NUMA architecture. So this is using a Mac OS with multi-clustering and use the parallel Fortran time critical application. So this has a higher performance using faster processors in the future models of that. Then we come to the next one, which just corresponds to the multi-computers. Multi-computers can be considered as distributed memory, processors, distributed memory multi-computers, whatever you call it. So where you have the what you call multiple computers as the nodes in a system, and between the multi-computers you have what is known as the message passing network. Each node is an autonomous computer consisting of all these things: processor, local memory, sometimes disk, hard disk, and sometimes IO peripherals also attached to them. Okay, but processor and local memory are compulsory to it. After the local memory, you can have hierarchical. Again, you can have a hierarchical structure of disk and peripheral within the autonomous node. So message passing network provides, point-to-point static connection among the different nodes. You can have a connection between different nodes. Local memories are, private to the processor. So, basically what it means is other processors, if they want to access, they should take permission from the processor so that they can access the, private local memory of the processor. Or might be a message can be a message is sent to the processor, and the processor will extract the data needed from its local memory and send it across to the other processor. And this is known as NORMA, which is no remote memory access, which in case of a traditional computer. So you have here the node. Below this, you can further have this is a processor and this is the local memory. Below this, you can have the disk and the IO devices being connected over here. Similarly to each one of this, and this is the message passing interconnection network, which might be either in the form of a mesh or a ring or a torus or a hypercube, whatever type of physical architecture you want, you can have it here, how they are connected. So most of the time when we talk about parallel computers, there might be either single instruction multiple data stream or the MIMD type of case. The SIMD is for special purpose applications. The what you call standard so to say connection is the machine is known as CM2 connection machine on the SIMD architecture. MIMD is the CM5 on the MIMD architecture having globally shared virtual address space. You can have scalable multiprocessors or multi-computers which use the distributed shared memory, or unscalable multiprocessors which use the centrally shared memory. So you have a shared memory and unscalable multiprocessors, whereas the distributed shared memory in case of a scalable multiprocessor or multi-computers. So this is the, rather, you can say that the, taxonomy, which is the Bell's taxonomy of the MIMD computers. Before coming to this itself, might be we can go back to our previous slides and see if there is anything missing there. So here, if you just see, same thing is being mentioned, no remote memory access, NORMA. Inter-node communication is achieved by passing messages through the static connection network. Okay, each node is autonomous with its own processor, local memory, local peripherals, might be even disks also. Okay, so I think we need to consider this. Each multi-computer uses routers and channels in its interconnection network, and the heterogeneous systems may involve the mixed nodes type and uniform data representation and communication protocols. So whatever multi-computers are there, they will use routers and channels in the interconnection networks. You can have many number of routers. Okay, between two routers there will be a channel, and you have heterogeneous systems. It need not be, what you call homogeneous. That means all systems need not be of the same type. All systems need not be running on the same operating system also. So hardware might be different, software might be different, but still, because you have the communication standards, that communication standard can be used for message passing. So you may have mixed node types and uniform data representation and communication protocols. So in this, we have in the multi-computer generations, we have initially the first generation where we use the hypercube architecture. Okay, hypercube means might be, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, 5-dimensional cubes. Okay, I think you might have, you might be knowing, if you say that, a 2-dimensional architecture, it might be a square. 3-dimensional will refer to a cube. Then 4-dimension will be what you call a 4-cube, generally, which we call it as a 4-cube, 5-cube, and all that. They are known as hypercubes. So 4-cube means you have 2 different cubes, which, each cube will be having naturally, that they'll be having, so to say, their edges. Okay, that will be 8 systems will be connected in a hypercube at the periphery, rather at the end of the nodes, and those 8 will be connected to the 8 nodes on the other cube. Okay, totally it will become 16. So whenever we say 2-dimension, then naturally square will have 4 nodes, a cube will have 8 nodes, a 4-cube will have 2 to the power of 4, that is 16 nodes, a 5-cube will have 2 to the power of 5 equal to 32 nodes, and so on. So again, a 5 cube will be 4 2 4 cubes. Again, the 16 nodes of one are connected directly to the 16 nodes of the other correspondingly. Okay, like that the structure goes on increasing, right? So that is the hypercube structure, and then you have the software controlled message switching processor boards. In the second generation, you have the mesh connected architecture. Mesh might be a some type of so to say a grid mesh or grid, sometimes as it is known as. The grid might be in the same way as, you might have seen the structure in case of what is that, digital signal processing. Whenever we write the DFT and all that, how the what you call the FFT, the DFT basically FFT structure, if you remember, okay, how the 16 points are connected to the 16 point on the other side, 8 points are connected to the 8 points on the other side. In the same way, you can have a mesh type of connected architecture. Of course, you have the hardware message switching. Then you have software for medium-grained distributed computing. So, fine-grained and medium-grained, it just means that, medium-grained means you have a grain of a larger size. Fine-grained means you can divide the whole program into smaller parts, and they also can be run parallelly. Okay. So we will see more of this when we come to the later chapters, what is fine grain and what is, medium grain. Only here we need to remember that medium grain means larger chunk of data might be there. Fine grain means just smaller chunk of data might be there. Okay. So in the third generation, we have the fine grain distributed computing, each with what you call VLSI chip containing the processor and the different communication resources such as routers and channels. So that's about the multi-computer generations, right? Coming back to the what you call the taxonomy. So you have the MIMD in the what is known as Bell's taxonomy of MIMD computers. You have the MIMD here, and it is divided into 2 categories: the multiprocessors and multi-computers. Multiprocessors is single address space shared memory computation, and multi-computers is multiple address space message passing computation. Further to the multiprocessors can be divided into the distributed memory multiprocessors, which are scalable, or central memory, multiprocessors, which are not scalable. The multi-computers can be divided into distributed multi-computers, which are scalable, or central multi-computers, which are not scalable. So further, you have quite a good amount of division, okay, where you have dynamic binding, static binding, and the corresponding properties over there. Okay, so this can be seen more clearly in the book, I think, most probably. Yes. So you have here, so distributed memory multiprocessors, which are scalable, can be again categorized into the dynamic binding of addresses to processors. Then the static binding ring multi-IEEE SCI standard proposal. Then static binding caching, which might be a Allant dash, that might be the example for that. Static program binding is BBN, CEDAR, and CM. All these are examples. These are the examples, and again IEEE SCI standard proposal, KSR, all these are examples. Then in the central memory multiprocessors, you have cross-point or multi-stage, which might be examples are Cray, Fujitsu, Hitachi, or a simple ring multi-bus, multi-replacement kind of situation. Or you can have, bus. What is this? It's not visible properly. It might be multi. Just let me check over here whether it is clear here. No, it's not clear there at all. Okay, might be multi-bus. Okay, this might be multi-bus. So which uses DEC, where DEC and ENCORE and NCR use that. Then you have the distributed multi-computers, which are scalable, which might be mesh connected. For example, Intel, or butterfly and flat tree type of architecture, which is used in CM5. Then the hypercubes in NQ. Then you have the fast LAN for high availability and high capacity clusters, which is used in DEC and Tandem. Then the LAN for distributed processing, which workstations or PCs, generally we use the LANs for distributed processing in workstation and PCs. Then the last category is the central, multi-computers. Okay, so this gives you the Bell's taxonomy of the MIMD, computers. That's just a structure of how the overall MIMD computers are divided into different categories, and some of the examples corresponding to that. Then we come to the multi-vector and the SIMD, supercomputer, okay, which will be basically corresponding to the, vector computers. You can have, vector computers within the multi-vector and SIMD computers. And the vector computers often built as a scalable processor with an attached optional vector processor. So in addition to the normal scalar processor, you have a vector processor, attached vector processor in case of a vector computer. So all data and instructions are stored in the central memory here, and all instructions decoded by the scalar control unit. All scalar instructions are handled by the scalar processor. So scalar and vector, you need to understand that scalar will be single data, vector will be, array kind of data, might be a one-dimensional array or two-dimensional array, which the vector processor can handle, in a better way. A vector processor can handle in a better way the what we call arrays, one or two or three-dimensional arrays. So when a vector instruction is decoded, it is sent to the vector processor control unit, which supervises the flow of data and execution of the instruction. So a vector instruction being decoded will refer to handling of a array, and that will be definitely given to the vector processor so that the vector processor can handle the arrays more in a better way than the scalar processor. Then we have what are known as vector processor models. Okay, so before going to the vector processor models, do we have anything extra in this set of slides? Let us try to see. Okay. So same thing over here, pipeline vector machines, bar vector computers using very few powerful processors equipped with vector hardware. We use vector processing. SIMD computers, which are parallel processors, emphasize the massively data parallelism. So which generally we call it as MPP. So this is the structure of a vector supercomputer, which I think is there in this also. Oh, it's not there here. Fine. So the vector processor model is, we have it here that in register model, a fixed number of possibly reconfigurable registers are used to hold all vector operands, intermediate and final vector results. All registers are accessible in the user instructions. So we have many registers in the register to register model where data can be transferred between one register to the other, and the what you call vector operands as well as the intermediate and the final results are all there in registers. So in the register to register model, we use instructions for which manipulate the registers. So it is more to say register type of addressing can be used over there. And in the memory to memory vector processors, primary memory holds operands and result, and a vector stream unit accesses memory for fetches and stores in the unit of large superwords. So memory we know is very huge, and hence you can store a lot of data there in the memory, and vector processor can fetch that memory, right? Operate on that, and the result is stored back into the memory in case of the memory to memory vector processors. Whereas in the register to register vector processors, generally data might be put in the intermediate as well as the operands. All again, those are vectors only, will be present in the registers only. So this is faster than this, but this can store lesser amount of data, might be smaller word lengths, whereas this can be larger word lengths. Okay, so that's the basic difference. Then we come to the SIMD supercomputers. Before going to the SIMD supercomputers, we can see the hardware over here. So you have the scalar processor, you have the vector processor here. Okay, so all the scalar data will go to the scalar processor. All the vector data will go to the vector processor. They are, we can see that they are almost. You can have a vector control unit here, you have a scalar control unit here. You might have scalar functional pipelines, vector functional pipelines, and some sort of vector registers and vector functional pipeline might be many. Okay, so there might be vector registers over here, and you have a host, so to say, computer with a mass storage and I/O managing the controlling the overall, so to say, vector supercomputer. Okay, so main memory and the program and data are connected to the host computer indirectly through the main memory. We connect it to the scalar processor, and to the vector processor. So accessing, this can be done away with in the memory to memory model, but in the register model, this might be necessary there because we have registers over here and they manipulate the data. Okay, so that, I think that's what we had in the previous slide in the other what you call set of slides in this, right? So that is register to register model and memory to memory model. So when we talk about memory to memory model, then we might be doing away with the what you call the vector registers over here. Okay, directly it will be accessing the memory data, and then it processes and sends it back to the memory. So this is a basic vector supercomputer kind of structure. So then we have the, so program and data are first loaded into the main memory through the host computer. You have the main host computer over here below, right? All instructions are first decoded by the scalar control unit. If the decoded instruction is a scalar operation or a program control operation, it will be directly executed by the scalar processor using the scalar function pipeline. If the instructions are decoded as vector operation, it will be sent to the vector control unit. So vector control unit will supervise the flow of vector data between the main memory and the vector function pipeline. Okay, so whatever vector data is, so these are the steps in which the execution of the code will be done. So first, program and data are loaded into the from the main memory or rather into the main memory through the host computer. It might be the host computer is connected to the we know that it's connected to the mass storage, which might be the hard disk, or you can have IO, which will be user interactive, and the data might come from either this place or this place, and it goes from the host computer to the main memory. There, once the instruction comes from the mass storage and goes into the main memory, whether the instruction is scalar type or so to say control type, or so whether it corresponds to a vector type of instruction or a scalar type. Scalar means it will just be processed by this. Vector means the control will be transferred to the vector processor. Okay, or rather to the scalar vector control unit. So scalar control unit will decide whether the set of instructions belong to it or they should be transferred to the vector control unit. So once it's transferred to the vector control unit, then it will process very fast by connecting directly through the main memory. It will take the data from the main memory and start processing it. And those are the so to say steps being put over here. Okay, vector control unit will supervise the flow of vector data between the main memory and the vector function pipelines. Okay. So we will take up the SIMD computers in the next class. Any doubts you have or anything to discuss, you can ask. Did you go through the solution manual? Anybody? Did anybody go through the solution manual? I think I have put it in the Google Classroom. No? Nobody went through. Please go through the numericals. Okay, because otherwise, if you're not able to catch it, then we can discuss those. Okay, if you are able to catch, because they're crisp, say, sometimes 45 lakhs might be put there, and here use 45. Okay, that kind of things will be there. You need to understand that, and we can do the calculations. Okay, all the problem solutions are there. You can just go through them. So when do I have the next class?
Next tomorrow, sir. Tomorrow, 2nd hour.
Tomorrow, 2nd hour. Tomorrow, 3rd hour I have. Okay. I'll take the 2nd hour because 3rd hour I have for the I think the other UG class. 2nd hour I'll take, no problem.
Okay.
Because there will be 15 minutes gap. Anything else to discuss? You can tell. Otherwise, we will close this session. So we don't have Sri Devi and we don't have Jafar also. Okay. Okay, we'll end the class.
Okay.
Thank you.